Well, I hope everybody had a good Columbus Day. I don't know, Eric, if you can call it Columbus Day, if that's a politically correct thing to say, but that's what my calendar says hanging on my wall. So, and if you didn't have a good one, and if you had to work, hopefully you didn't work too hard. Well, Eric, it was a crazy mid-season form college football weekend. And it's Monday. We can still kind of talk a little bit about what happened last week, but talk about what's coming up. And to start the show, there's parity in the Big 12. And when I stayed up, guys, chat, Eric, I stayed up way too late. I watched that BYU game, and it was a banger. I mean, I didn't think they were going to win, and then they kept getting called calls for pass interference, and then BYU kept getting a first down, and then they 20 seconds, 5 seconds, they scored with 20 seconds left. But it was close. BYU's legit. There are some other teams that we thought, Iowa State was big on our list. They lost to Colorado. Eric, anything that sticks out this week other than Penn State's coach getting fired? We'll talk about that.
If you didn't like this week, you don't like college football. You're exactly right. Parity all over the place in the Big 12 and even beyond. You're seeing everything from huge upsets to schools kind of developing their own identity, a new identity, where they're competing for, a seat at the table for the national championship. So yeah, this is what it's all about right here. A weekend like this past one, my goodness, all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, Texas told Oklahoma to sit down. You don't deserve a top 10 spot. Oregon looked like they had the game. And then Indiana, West Virginia's very own Curt Cignetti, and Indiana PA's Curt Cignetti, had those guys balling. They won 30-20 against Oregon, and that's a good Oregon team that went into Happy Valley and beat James Franklin and company. Well, now it's just and company. But, Texas Tech is as dominant as ever, winning 42-17 over Kansas. Kansas gave West Virginia a thumping. That's concerning. That made my heart kind of sink, like, oh.
Yeah. You hate to do that, to compare the team that beat the team, but how can you not? Before we run away from Coach Cignetti's success, kudos to him. He has really developed that program, which before he had gotten there, they had some success here and there, but nothing like they're having now. He's proving his football IQ and his ability to develop a program. Just well done there. Whenever you're ready, we'll talk about Penn State. We had some points we were starting to talk about as far as comparing their actions and WVU's last year.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. That's definitely it's interesting. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I want to get to the this week's game. It's set. Last week's game set up the BYU Arizona game, double overtime. Talked about that to start show off. Utah really showed Arizona State who's boss at 42-10. Setting up the Utah BYU game this weekend. So that's definitely one to highlight on the schedule. But
oh my goodness, do not miss that game. That's a rivalry. That's even without the buildup. And quite honestly, that might have been a factor for BYU, might have been a little bit of a trap game, because those two programs, BYU and Utah, they go way back.
Yeah, I'm looking at on pen and paper, Utah's tough, but I just like BYU. I just like the quarterback. If you're wearing number 47 and you're playing quarterback and it's not the 1930s or 40s, I think that's kind of cool. But another concerning before we move on to Penn State and maybe some Pitt, Iowa State, in my mind, was one of the top teams in the conference. But Colorado and Deion Sanders said, "Wait a second, we're gonna beat you guys," and they won 24-17. I was really surprised by that. So that led to our show tonight, parody, and there's no easy wins. There's no easy wins on the West Virginia schedule. There's no easy in the Big 12. If you think so, then you're delusional.
Yeah, that's been talked about in a number of different podcasts, and I completely agree. You know, not only podcasts but tailgates everywhere. The notion that when we were in the Big East, and all due respect to to Rutgers and even previous to that, Temple, when we used to play Temple, those were teams that you always felt year in and year out you had a real good chance of beating them. And it's not that, again, no disrespect to them, but your program was fixed consistently. That's where you could play some younger players and you could count on getting a win. And it's just when you have that kind of built-in dynamic in your schedule, you can do a lot to develop your team and to improve confidence, all sorts of things. That does not exist in this Big 12.
No, it doesn't. It's crazy, and it's definitely interesting. And other than BYU, Utah, there's some programs that are just playing good ball in late October. And good ball in late October, I'd be remiss if I don't mention Pittsburgh. They went to Tallahassee and they beat a good Florida State team. I kept tuning back into that game. Pittsburgh was hanging around, and all of a sudden I thought, this is not good for Florida State. Pittsburgh's starting to getting some juice, and they played some good ball, and they came back and scored, and they beat Florida State. So hats off to still eat shit Pitt, but I growing up I was a Florida State fan. I like watching the Seminoles and Bobby Bowden, but that was very surprising. I didn't think that was going to happen in a million years. This whole weekend was surprises. And then to wrap things in a bow, I'm going to hand it over to you. Northwestern beat Penn State. 3 losses in a row for Penn State. That was one loss too many. The board convened, and Saturday morning or Sunday morning, they basically around noon they told the old ball coach James Franklin to pack his shit and go somewhere else with his $40+ million. So he's wiping his tears with Benjamins. But
yeah, not a bad gig if you can get it. We talked about about the timing and the notion that Rich got hired after the season was over, and there's always been a coaching carousel that we've all talked about. The notion that one school gets rid of a coach and it's a good program, so if they go and pick another coach from another school, which is 90% of the time how that goes, pretty soon you've created a vacuum at that school where that departing coach is, and it just moves on down the line. Now, that being said, there's a similar kind of dynamic now with the transfer portal. Not so much the NIL. The NIL contributes to it, but with this transfer portal, you have the same kind of musical chairs game being played, and so program like Penn State, where they expect to contend for national championship year in and year out, they are not going to wait to the end of the season. They are not going to have a season like we're having this year. Rich is year 0. I know he won't admit that, but that's what this is. And that's why I was not surprised at all that when I saw that, I was watching, I always watch games and, message with friends who are all over the country. Mm-hmm. And we were all saying there's no way he will not be coaching them next week. One of my friends was being, a little harsh. And he said, I bet they won't even let him go back into the locker room. And lo and behold, I mean, my goodness, it was that night. Um, so yeah, that's what's going on. They are not going to have a lapse, and I don't blame them because one thing that really should be mentioned, um, before Franklin got there, Penn State was having a little bit of a lapse. They'd had some years that they'd had some down years, and so when James Franklin came, I think he came from Vandy. Um, you know, it seemed to be a really good match. Now, why it didn't work, I don't know. We're going to find out. And I think a lot of players are making business decisions. At least that's the way it would appear. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out the rest of the season for Penn State, when they'll hire a coach and how that's going to work, because the longer they wait, the more they put themselves behind the eight ball with that player carousel.
Yeah, and if you get a good coach, I have my feeling is like they're going to reach out to someone like Coach Campbell at Iowa State, and you're talking to a guy that's leading a program that's somewhat successful, established, and they're going to get a Power 4 guy. They're not going to be reaching for a Vandy guy again because at that point, Penn State still had some Sandusky stank on it. It still wasn't quite. And Franklin did, in his 9 years, get them to a level. And the memes that I have saw have been pretty funny. Like, I saw him with a Michigan State shirt on and said, we'll take 9-3 every year and just losing to a top 5 school. A lot of teams will take that.
Oh yeah.
So, we had a conversation, and a lot of rumors are out there. And I know this is a West Virginia channel, but you guys have to understand that it's like a stone in a pond. We're all in the same pond, and those ripples are going to have effects all throughout college football. And this is a pretty big stone, kids. So, Signetti, he's on the list. I'm saying that's complete and utter nonsense. He's not leaving. And some people disagree with me, but I'm going to give you my spiel. He has a team right now that's top 3. Why would he leave to go to another program in the same conference? I don't think it's going to be a money thing. And I don't think Penn State's going to, pay the buyout for him to leave to go to Penn State. I just think they're going to look other places. But he's still on a lot of the people who knows lists. But what are your thoughts? Am I crazy?
Shane, now you may be crazy, but not for this reason. This is, I think you're right on the money, because I was thinking Signetti. And then as we were talking, the more truth you were spitting, I was like, he's making some great points here. Why would Signetti leave a place where he is getting all kinds of love? He's getting all kinds of freedom to run that program the way he'd like. And he's getting all kinds of financial support. He's got that program performing. Because my initial thought was, well, if he goes to Penn State, he's got a better chance at, getting to a national championship. And you pointed out, does he? Because they're already number 3 right now. And we talked about, they number 2 is not unrealistic for where they could be.
I think they should be 1 or 2. Absolutely. I mean, other than Ohio State, I think they're better than Ohio State. I'd love to see them.
I'm going to disagree with you there.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But you're right. I mean, in that top 5, this is one of those years where every one of those top 5 programs, I don't think you should give them numbers. I think those are all 5 really solid programs. They're all playing great ball.
And I'm going to tell you this too. My sister played on a high school basketball program. Mm-hmm. From 1982 to 98. They hadn't lost a conference basketball game. 82 to 98. She was on a team that lost, in 98. Every game you played in that conference was the other team's playoff game. Everyone you. That's like Ohio State. Every team's like, okay, this is Ohio State. Indiana's still Indiana. People are kind of like, it's Indiana. They still don't have that. They still have that little dog, little brother kind of, and then Indiana comes in and lays the smack to them. But I really think, good on them for having success. I love it. I like to see that. But to close, and we'll put this thing to bed. Cignetti right now is at a program where if he wins 9 games, 10 games year in and year out, he's a hero. You do that at Penn State and you don't win the Big Ten or don't win a national championship, you're going to be packing your bags. And Coach Cignetti in 3 weeks has won more top 5 games than Franklin did in 10 years. So he has
That's
that going
crazy,
for him.
Shane. That's an excellent another man. You're blowing me away. That's another great point.
I am a master debater. Wait a second. Maybe the other thing. But anyways.
Be careful how you say that, sir. Yeah.
So we're going to go to the chat real quick. Coop is always here. Coop, we love you. Love seeing you here. Jerseyer once again. Jerseyer has a little show. It's successful. It's fantastic. He's also a school teacher, so he's a little bit more of an what do they say? Orator? Hey,
orator. Well done.
So he does a good job, has stats, have slides, and I take my shoes off to do this in case I have to count. So we got Afton, Daredevil here, but no, guys, this is a lot of people are poo-pooing Rich Rod already, losing their patience. Coos had a show earlier today he released, and it hit on something, but he went more into the weeds. And it's something I was thinking about, but I really didn't have the numbers to support my thoughts. And he did a really, really good job where he showed in his show, Coos' Corner, the teams that are successful in the Big 12 have a better mix of transfers and guys that have been there a year or two. And we kind of were talking, Eric, there's a recipe for that. Texas Tech kind of had it down. I didn't know what the magic number was. I watched Coos. I saw what he presented. I did some research on my own. And my research indicates around 20% is the magic number of transfer portal guys that you want. Okay? So with that, your BYU, they didn't have a lot of transfers. West Virginia, on the other hand, how many did they have? 50, 60? A lot.
Well, we had 80. Yeah, we had 82 new players. Yeah.
So with that, there's a magic formula, and I think that formula is starting to become less of art, more of a science, as the college football world matures, and these coaches kind of start getting their feelers out and finding exactly, oh yeah, if this happens, and they're going to make some decisions that will affect success. Rich Rod understands this. And we just talked before the show. We're like, oh boy, these guys are decommitting. These guys are committing. What the hell's going on? Eric, any thoughts before I bring up the guys that, they talked about that Aaron Edwards decommitting? Any thoughts on this? Maybe West Virginia doing something good? Go ahead.
No. What were you saying?
No, I just want you to. What do you think West Virginia? What do you think Rich Rod has up his sleeves when they say someone's decommitting? I don't think it's just someone decommitting. I think West Virginia might be kindly kind of pulling back some of these guys and maybe going to spend a little bit more money and aim a little higher in the transfer portal. That's just
I completely agree with you. And you made this point before the show. We were talking. It was nice. We had a little bit of time to talk. Yeah. I was here in Studio 2, also known as the garage. But a couple of things. Rich is at the tail end of year 0. So believe it or not, and I know this is going to be a very unpopular and controversial thing for me to say, whereas players aren't speaking with coaches because you can get interfering kind of discussions, their agents are. Excuse me. And players have agents now. Mm-hmm. This is the new world of college football. Excuse me, where it's basically, a variant of professional. And so the notion that you're looking at the car in the driveway and you're like, that's a pretty nice car. That'll get me to where I need to go. But then you see the neighbor driving a nicer car and you're like, maybe I can do better too. Um, whereas biblically, that's not a good practice. You're not supposed to covet your neighbor's stuff. But in the world of competition, I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing we're at the end of that year. We had players that we thought, okay, we got to get some people signed up. And then we're seeing, okay, maybe we can get some better players. And I think that's what's happening too. And in that case, you want to be fair to people. You want to be good to people, players especially, because you never know how things are going to go. And we live in a world now where it's very fluid. It's year to year. But Rich did say that he wants to find the right guys, the right players for the program, so they don't just come in for a year and they're gone. He wants players that want to come in, they want to learn, they want to develop, and so they can perform, and they can get good film, so that they can move on. Hopefully not to another school, but at the end of their college career, hopefully they play here for a few years, and they can play on Sundays. That's the goal. But I agree with you, buddy. I think we may be elevating, and I think the announcements, the timing of the announcements, where we've seen that, hey, we're actually going to have a nice little purse, war chest, if you will, built up for next year. That timing's not coincidental.
So that brings up the next part of our segment here. I'm going to go through some of the recruits that have committed to West Virginia, and don't be surprised if some of these guys, I wouldn't say back out or decommit, but their recruitment's reevaluated. Now, Jerome Hughley, we don't know, but Wyatt Brown, he's still on board. Running back Sir Paul Cheeks, another running back Christopher Talley, and also running back Jet Walker. You got a wide receiver Robert Oliver, Malachi Thompson. I feel like Keenan Peele reading some of these names I can't pronounce. Charlie Hannafin, also tight end Sam Hamilton. They have some linemen, Lamarcus Dillard, Justin Louds, Rhett Morris, Camden Goforth. Defensive lineman Cameron Mallory. 3 edge rushers, Noah Tisendorf, Carter Kessler, Camden Gillespie. Linebackers, they have Miles Catry, Cam Dyer, and Anthony Sharp. Who else they have on this list here? Vincent Smith, the cornerback, Amari Peterson, and Simon Jahill. And then they have 3 safeties in Jalen Jones, Emery Snyder, and Ricky Giles. So currently, as of October 12th, when I put all that down and pen to paper, that's who West Virginia currently has as okay. They've checked that block, and that's per on3rivals.com. And what other source did I use? Yeah, so that's where I pulled that. So, guys, that's it's looking better this year. We keep talking about year 0. I know we preach about that. This is year 0, guys. With that, UCF really looked competitive against Cincinnati. The defense looked really good. I'm concerned with West Virginia's offensive line struggles that UCF, their defensive line, is going to give West Virginia fits. Don't know how healthy Anthony Edwards is. Eric and I were talking about that. Eric, you said, oh my gosh, he's had a bye week. I'm hoping he's feeling better. You still feel that way? You felt that way 30 minutes ago.
About Ty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ty, yeah.
I hope so. Yeah, I do actually, because the injury he has to his thigh, just rest is the only thing that's going to make the difference. And he's in this time period, He hasn't had to do anything but heal it and rest it. And I think our facilities are really good as far as um, overall fitness, including recovery. So I think that's going to make a huge difference. I'm hoping our offensive line has had time to work on techniques and strategies. So the notion of when you're seeing what I would think are missed assignments, and we're being told, no, they're not missed assignments. Okay, I can totally accept that. I don't know as much football as the coaches at WVU. I got no qualms admitting that. But whatever it is, I hope we see less of it. Because I think you and I had the same agreement, had the same feelings. As far as our most likely win for the rest of the season, would you say Houston was number one and UCF was number two previous to this weekend?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Uh, I'm
You
going to the
still feel
comments.
that way?
Well, it comes and it goes. You ask me in 2 minutes, it'll change. But I'm
Yeah.
going to chat here real quick. Coop says Nico was in town. Heard that too. Of course, he's probably getting his stuff. But Sir Paul tore his ACL. I did not hear that. And then I did hear why I said that earlier is because I did hear Ty was out of town, meeting with someone about his thigh. And my kid just went through that with his thigh. Played a couple, third week of the season, had a thigh injury. Start feeling better at like Thursday, Friday, injured again playing ball, and then nurse it for 3 or 4 days, and it keep re-injuring it until finally just. And I think that's what Ty Edwards is just his. He just finally just it just. It's when that injury happens. The only thing if you tear a tendon, it has to be surgery. But if it's a rupture or a fray of a muscle, nothing but time. But that's not good if he's meeting with a specialist. That means there's something torn, or there's something that's not healing properly. So that is not a good thing. So Larry Westfall is also giving us a let's go Mountaineers. But back to UCF. I'm sorry, Eric. Went down the rabbit hole there.
No, it was good. That was good. That was good discussion.
We have no love from Vegas, from the people that know better than us, Dimers.com, Arizona Republic, USA Today, ESPN. They're all going against the Mountaineers, and the spread right now, give the Mountaineers 7 points. But one good thing. I'm not going to say what odds maker says this, but they say take West Virginia in the points. So, but Arizona. One article says UCF 38, West Virginia 35. Another article says UCF 26, West Virginia 21. So they say it's going to be a close game, but ESPN, Eric, gives West Virginia basically a 28% chance of winning.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I don't know. UCF, we were talking about it for weeks, was highlighted as, hey guys, as we're rubbing each other's shoulders, and this is the one they can win. This one they can win. Beat Houston, and then they maybe could steal one and come out of this with almost a bowl game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, guys, it's gonna like the title of this episode said. There's no easy wins this year. Cincinnati had a hell of a time at UCF. West Virginia is traveling to the bounce house, but last year I thought West Virginia was going to have difficulty at UCF, and West Virginia manhandled them. So, you have any thoughts that maybe West Virginia's been scheming? The old ball coach Rich Rod has a couple tricks up his sleeve. What have you heard in Morgantown?
So as much as I don't want to keep bringing his name up because the guy's got a life and he's moving on. Neil Brown did a great job against UCF. But everything's new now. Rich is here. Well, he's right there. Uh, but after a bye, Rich is usually pretty good. He's usually really good about making the most of that bye week. It's not everybody sits around and, as Afton says, braids each other's hair. Uh, they usually work on things. Whether it's recovery, we'd have a hard time. We'd have to roast marshmallows.
Back hairs, just straight back hairs, like a bad mood.
But Rich has always been good about, adding new wrinkles to the offense, working on technique. So I do think the 7 points, when I saw that, especially after how UCF had really hung in against Cincy, I thought, man, we're actually getting a little bit of respect. Excuse me. That being said, yeah, I would be very tempted to take West Virginia in the points.
I agree, Eric. I think that definitely would be something that I would do. But this article is called "The Evil of Two Lessers," and it's UCF and West Virginia. Both teams are 0-3 in the Big 12. And the guy that wrote is called Bill Sparrows. You know, West Virginia does have this going for them. They're coming off a bye. And I think it would be a lot bigger of a spread if West Virginia wasn't coming off a bye. That bye, getting that week's rest, that extra couple days, really will help the Mountaineers out a lot because they need to lick their wounds. They need to kind of figure out where to plug and play the able-bodied guys that they have, and also get these freshman quarterbacks, Fox, and I don't know who they're going to play. I mean, really, they gonna. Have you heard anything like who's going to be starting? But those two cats have to get more reps, and I'd love to see. I think West Virginia is going to be competitive. The kickoff is 1:00. I don't know what the uniform is. They usually come out with that. We'll have that on Thursday's show. We'll talk about that. But it's going to be interesting. We're not going to do a super long show today because we came off a bye week, talking about everything and just talking in circles. But Eric, what is your thoughts for the game this week? Do you think West Virginia has a snowball's chance in hell, or is it going to be just take the 7 and just put $10 down to West Virginia covers, and that'll be a win?
I am cautiously optimistic. Again, if you go back and look at Rich's history, he's done pretty well after bye weeks. I'm looking for us to hold our own. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I know UCF did a great job against Cincy, but I think you take West Virginia in the points, and I think it's going to be. I think we're going to be competitive. I still think this is one of our better chances to win. I'm going to say it's our second best chance to win, maybe third. But yeah, absolutely. Don't give up on this team yet.
Jerseyer says Henderson's is doubtful. Max Brown's probable. That leaves us with 2 freshmen to start the game. So I feel comfortable with either 2 of those guys splitting time, much like they did last game. Even though the outcome wasn't a win, I love the fact that they scored points in the fourth quarter. The offensive line got a little bit of a push. There are some rays of sunshine coming through the hills of West Virginia, and when that sun does shine, enjoy it while you can, because there are going to be some dark days ahead for year 0. So with that, Mountaineer fans, thanks for tuning in. Eric, thanks for being here every week with me. Eric and I are the 2 guys that bring you the West Virginia live show on the Voice of College Football West Virginia channel here at the Voice of College Football. So with that, we'll say good night to you, and we will see you Thursday at 8:00 for our call-in show. And guys, we're going to say good night with the great state flag of West Virginia.